Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the European Marine Board Third Thursday Science Webinar series. Thanks very much for joining us today. My name's Britt Alexander, and I will be moderating this webinar today. Next slide, please. So the format of the webinar is that we will have a talk for around 30 minutes, and then we'll have an interactive question and answer session for the remaining time. So we encourage you to enter your questions for the speaker in the Q&A box, and I will be moderating and choosing the questions to ask to our speakers. So in light of that, I have a few housekeeping rules. So please make sure that that you've clearly named yourself in Zoom so that we know who you are when you are asking questions. And yep, you can use the Q&A box. You can also let us know which organization and country you're from. And if you have any technical questions, if you can't hear us or anything like that, or you can't see the screen, then you can put your comment in the chat for us. And just to note also that this webinar is being recorded and it will be available afterwards on our website and our YouTube channel. Next slides. So the focus of the webinar today is on marine biotechnology. These are the two most recent reports from the European Marine Board on this topic. So we'll be looking in a bit more detail into the content of these documents and sort of progress since they were published. They're fairly old now, so the position paper, Marine Biotechnology, a New Vision and Strategy for Europe, was published in 2010. And more recently, but still already 5 years ago, we published a policy brief as well on marine biotechnology, advancing innovation in Europe's bioeconomy. Next slide. So our speaker today is Dr. Anna Rotter. She's a senior research associate from the Marine Biology Station in Piran, Slovenia, which is part of the National Institute of Biology. We're very interested to hear your thoughts and perspective on this topic, Anna, and welcome. So over to you.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you for this invitation. I will just start with sharing my screen. Okay. So, yeah. So I will try to be as brief as possible and as brief as necessary in order to maybe stimulate our thoughts on what has been going on and how big of a potential there is in this exciting field of marine biotechnology. So I would like to disclaim first and foremost, because I will give some my own personal thoughts on how we are progressing and where we are. So this is my current personal point of view, based on my former and ongoing collaborations, the research, desk research, and other types of research that I have been involved in. And my perspectives might change, or my thoughts might change in a couple of years. They will be given at least bits and pieces as they currently are. So this is just to make sure that everybody understand it's my personal point of view. And if you will have other points of view, I would be interested to hear from you also. So first of all, a few words about me. I am a microbiologist and a statistician. I started my work, my career in industry, in fish industry actually. And by coincidence, I got into research and started as a statistician. Over in the first 10 years of my career as a researcher, I was more focused on data as a data scientist, and then transitioned slowly into marine area, where I saw that in the Mediterranean, where Slovenia is situated, there is an empty niche that could be filled in, and this is marine biotechnology. I'm not saying that there are no research efforts. I'm not saying that nothing is being done. There are no research groups. What I noticed is that there is, as we call it, fragmentation of knowledge, fragmentation of expertise. Nobody knows who are the key players, especially in the region. Maybe there is less communication with the policy-making sector. And most importantly, if we compare ourselves in the Mediterranean with Northern Europe, we are lagging behind significantly for several sorts of reasons. Nevertheless, the fact is that there is this niche, and I saw that we could fill it in, and there is high potential to advance in the field. So this is one of the things that got me into marine biotechnology. Second thing that got me is that I love, my background is transdisciplinary. I like transdisciplinary fields of research and such as biotechnology. And more than 10 years ago, and after I was awarded with the National L'Oréal Prize, I started getting involved with communication, science communication, equality, equal opportunities, and policy science interface. Before, I always thought that science was a field done in isolated environment where only peer-to-peer in communication is valued. But I quickly realized that this is by no means how science, especially biotechnology, should be done today. And in the past 10 years, I have to say we have done a lot from this identification of a potential niche. Where we currently are is we have merged or we are merging anybody who is interested in the field of marine biotechnology, regardless on their origin, regardless on their level of expertise, regardless on their sector. We are currently under the umbrella of Ocean for Biotech, which is a network and a cost action that I'm chairing, currently involving around 150 individuals from almost all European countries, some of the Northern African and some of the Southern, North and South Africa, and some of the Southern American ones. So what we are trying to do is establish, first of all, a network of individuals who are devoted to the to marine biotechnology, who want to collaborate, who want to communicate, who want to share best practices, and have also this. I have also this vision of a good communication among individuals. In the Mediterranean, where we are situated, we are currently also joined in a project called Be Blue, which is trying to advance individual value chains of high potential in marine biotechnology that would be very good for increasing economic prosperity in the Mediterranean region. So we are 10 partners from 8 countries working very well together and trying to fill the gap between science funding, science policy, research, and industry. Also, I hope this will become a reality in the Mediterranean. Currently, there is this initiative to formalize the Mediterranean Innovation Alliance for Sustainable Blue Bioeconomy, and we are now in the last phases of its definition. So I hope this will become one day a reality, because this would become a platform for communication among individuals from the same region with different environmental needs, political needs, economical opportunities than maybe the rest of the Europe. But in parallel, the vision with Ocean for Biotech is one day to become a professional association that would enable anyone and everyone who wants to become a part of the community to do so. Also, locally or nationally, we are now funded by the government to pursue the research in marine biotechnology with the newly funded research program. And on the side, there are many realized and unrealized ideas and side collaborations that with the overall vision that at least some of them one day will go to market. Because for me, that is the overall aim of marine biotechnology, that for me. Now today, anyone who starts being involved in marine biotechnology should, I think, in my opinion, be aware of several important documents that have evolved throughout the last 20 years. Three of those I will be scrutinizing today. And the first one is more than 20 years old, as you see. It's from 2001, from Marine Board, the strategy, the perspective on a position paper on the potential of marine biotechnology. Almost 10 years later, as Brit already introduced, was the position paper on marine biotechnology, which is a roughly 100-page long introduction to what is important to advance in the field in Europe. And 5 years ago, the European Marine Board published the policy brief, a very interesting piece of information where which introduces currently where we are. So I looked at all three of them and tried to see what was considered as the vision in 20 years ago and how we are progressing, how have we been progressing until today, and what is my personal opinion, how we stand. But these are by no means the only documents that have been published. There are a couple more. Two that I like very much are the one in 2020 that was more connected to the smart specialization strategies, which selected 3 regions in Europe. And the other one is the traditional blue bioeconomy report from last year, but I think every 2 years or every year they publish a new one. So these are for me some of the essential, but there are many more documents. So when you start engaging in marine biotechnology, you just read and read and read before your mind clears up, because it's such an inherently transdisciplinary field of research and field of development that unfortunately or fortunately, you have to dig in not only into science, but many other fields, as I will explain later. A side note on terminology, as you will also see, look at here in the 3 documents that I will be presenting today, all have marine biotechnology in its title, while look at the one from JRC, it has blue biotechnology, blue bioeconomy. I don't know when this nomenclature changed, but I assume it has to do something with the article from a Polish researcher from 10 years ago who identified the colors of biotechnology, from blue to black to purple to golden to yellow and white and so on. So personally, I prefer the terminology marine biotechnology, but many people nowadays use the terminology blue biotechnology, because I personally think that this separation of biotechnologies is fuzzy. So marine biotechnology can contribute to any other color. So personally, I like marine, but so just I explain to you why I'm using marine biotechnology. So before we advance, there are some points that have to be introduced. Also, this is the so-called quadruple helix, which is very important in marine biotechnology, because not only you work and communicate with your scientific peers, so science and academia, top left. Very importantly, as you will also see from the documents that I will present to you, is the communication among science, academia, and on one side, and industry on the other side. Because, as I said, the overall aim of marine biotechnology is to go to market with a process or a product that originates somewhere from marine environments. So this way of collaboration and way of communication, way of data and knowledge sharing is very different if it's among scientific colleagues or when it's on the line science industry. But even more importantly, so if we want to do real marine biotechnology, we must communicate with the policy sector. We cannot go and hope that the policy making authorities, either national or international ones, will do everything by themselves. We have to communicate with them. We have to give some guidelines. We have to give some feedback. And this takes a lot of time. In science, unfortunately, we are not trained in our academic progress that this is unfortunately, or the fact is that sometimes this communication with other sectors takes more than 50% of your time. And whenever possible, you can, each individual in fact can change policies, can advocate for legislation change, and they should rightfully do so, because especially in the fields like marine biotechnology. And finally, and very importantly so, you need to raise awareness in the consumers, in your potential buyers and users of your new products, and this is the public. Not only by informing them, also by educating them and engaging them, not through maybe, as it was previously, through documentaries, but also really hands-on opportunities. Test the samples, test our prototypes, because they will be your opinion makers, and the very strong ones. This is the same figure, but in addition to what I was saying, we experts are those who provide knowledge. We should communicate with the left side industry who will utilize this knowledge. But don't forget about the policymaking sector who enable knowledge by enabling financing and legislation to launch our products. And finally, users are those who demand knowledge, who demand products, who demand new processes, who demand that we solve problems to acute challenges that are now governing our everyday lives. And how to identify those problems? They are called in European language societal challenges. And societal challenges are not a fixed definition of items. It is an evolving, it evolves throughout time, typically in Europe in 7 to 10 year periods. And it is typically, or it can be scientific community and the general public have the power, besides the policymaking authority, to create the buzz or to launch the buzz about the urgency of addressing a topic. Is it climate change? Is it plastic pollution? Is it antibiotic resistance, and so on? So this is how it a scientific societal challenge is being defined. But then it takes the policymaking sector to really scrutinize and address it and try to find ways how to mitigate this challenge. Currently in the period of 21 to 27, on the right side, as you see, there are 6 societal global challenges that are being addressed in the framework program called Horizon Europe. They have changed slightly from the former Horizon 2020 framework program, but so this is just to see that this is a challenge that we are trying to address also through marine biotechnology can change from time to time. That is why the way science, marine biotechnology science is being conducted is very different from your classical basic sciences who are curiosity driven. Marine biotechnology is challenge driven typically, because you get, to be very blunt, you get funding to find solutions for a specific challenge. Now, in the following of the webinar, I will focus on this pipeline that maybe in one picture shows what marine biotechnology is all about and how intertwined it is between various fields of research. Basic and applied research here on the timeline are your typical categorization or two types of scientific conduct. And one in marine biotechnology, one cannot exist without another, because applied research builds on knowledge from basic studies, basic observation studies, basic ecology studies, and from knowledge obtained about the ecological communities and their lists of compounds and their activities, we can then look for ways of cultivation of organisms, how to extract, how to prove the concepts on the lab scale before even going and engaging with the industry to hear what are their needs, to hear what are their opportunities, and to try to increase the amounts, scale up the production. But what we often forget whenever we engage in these types of collaboration, industry science, is especially not the industrial sector. I'm not criticizing now the industrial, but I'm criticizing now the scientific research sector, is the potential of future commercialization. None of the marine biotechnology pipeline developments can exist without taking into consideration the legal aspects, market research, business strategy, life cycle assessment, customer connection, customer acceptance, raising awareness. And what I have seen is often we forget about this last part, especially business and customer acceptance. So this might be one of the reasons why many good ideas go unvalorized and remain as, if I put it very, if I do descriptively, remain in drawers, unused. But overarching on the top of this figure are also, never forget, what are the societal challenges? How can we design and co-design knowledge and the protection of intellectual property, which is also something that is done very differently depending on whether we work with industry or with the basic scientists. And some more historical overview. Actually, marine biotechnology is a new field, but it has been emerging for the last 40 years, when it was realized that the marine environment is our marine environment are ecosystems with untapped potential. They're underused, unvalorized, and even unexplored. And especially in the sense of when we compare to the terrestrial ecosystems. Also, we have to understand that the competition to advance in the pipeline development of marine biotechnology solutions is very, very fierce, because the likelihood of being successful or getting a compound that can be produced rather cheap and in high quantities, the likelihood of success is low, and it takes many years and many millions, sometimes even, to even have the proof of concept. So sometimes you lose faith, sometimes you lose energy, sometimes you have to quit and change totally your career because it takes just so much time, and even getting funding is it has low likelihood. Moreover, besides the inherent need of communication and collaboration with different disciplines, there is a lot of legal, administrative, and communication and financial obstacles that need to be addressed in order to be effective in your work. That is why I always say to my younger colleagues, you have to be, if you want to get into this field, you have to be resilient. You have to adapt to the changing societal challenge. You have to adapt and quickly react to the new legislation change, to the new political structure change, to the new funding calls. And what we have not achieved in the last 20 years, since the first document was prepared by the Marine Board, where it was said that Europe by 2020 will be established as a world leader in marine bioscreening and derived bioproducts. We are not there yet. We are still not world leaders, and I hope in the next 20 years, maybe we will become good competitors in comparison with Northern America or Southeast Asia. The potential, because the potential is there. You can see here in the last 15 years, the global estimation of global marine biotechnology value has almost doubled from little around 2.5, 2.8 million, a billion euros to 5 billion euros, which is estimated until 2025. And European Union has given quite a lot of financial support to advance in this field. The number of 262 million euros in the last 7 years is underestimation. In reality, is much higher because this number was estimated based on search you can see here on algae, aquaculture, biomass, seafood, spirulina, or biotech. In reality, marine biotechnology is so much more, but unfortunately, there is no organized framework how to follow, monitor what has been going on and what is successful. So I will address this problematic more than once, because in reality, what we need to have is a source of information that would strictly monitor in the European region what has been done, what has been financed, and where we stand 5 years after a specific project finished. And also the allowing the establishment of a platform where we could all communicate. So there is money being given to advance this field, but and a lot of money. So we should not focus. There are not only algal or macro and microalgal biotechnologies that are being developed. In reality, there is also much more. Let's just refresh these ideas on this pipeline, and in the following remainder of the presentation, I will go through each of the blocks: basic research, applied, scale-up, industrial scale-up, and commercial application, and to see how they have been addressed in the 3 documents. The one from 2001, the position paper, the long paper from 2010, and the policy brief from 2017. Yeah, before that, in these 3 documents that are important for today's webinar, more than once these sectors are mentioned, where marine biotechnology has potential in Europe: health and cosmetics, bioremediation, anti-fouling, and biosensors. Interestingly, biosensors have been mentioned ever since 2001, while cosmetics, for example, appeared in 2010, not in the first document. Anti-fouling appeared in the last version, no, also in 2010. Materials and biopolymers are also identified, and of course, the big one, food, feed, and aquaculture. Energy appeared not early in 2001, but later it was identified as a high potential, but we are not there yet. And organisms that typically are mentioned in these reports are microorganisms. Oh, I forgot algae, sorry. Algae are on the first place, macro and microalgae, the most obvious ones. And of course, bacteria, sponges, and not only as organisms, but also their potential to develop spongy cell cultures, and to maybe more address the symbionts that coexist with these sponges and also jellyfish. Jellyfish are also marginally, but always mentioned in all these documents as a high potential organism group. So if we go to the first block, basic science, what has been done or mentioned in 2001 until today. So early on, it was already identified that typical classical observational and monitoring studies should always remain. The classical marine explorations that address biodiversity should not be excluded, but should be more going hand in hand with potential of biotechnology applications. Because now, so let me also disclaim this, the first three columns I took from the three papers, while the column for 2022 is my personal opinion. So the first three columns is what is already in the documents. The 2022 is what I think should be done to improve this vision and strategy. So we are aware that basic observational studies and monitoring, sampling, and screening should remain. However, unfortunately, today, what I have seen more often than not is that classical biodiversity explorations and explorations that are organized for biotechnology purposes are separate. In fact, what was already identified 20 years ago, that it was that these monitoring campaigns and sampling campaigns should be conducted hand in hand in order not to waste precious time and resources. This is also true for high throughput screening and the development of omics technologies, which have been mentioned for the last 20 years, and they have been developing, and they should be used more frequently in, and they are being used actually more already routinely in marine biotechnology studies as well. As well as it was mentioned early on, symbionts, because sometimes the organisms that are thought to be the producers of a specific compound with desired bioactivity are maybe stimulated by the presence of specific microbial communities, or indeed it is the microbial community that is responsible for the synthesis of a specific metabolite or natural product. So why not look at the symbionts as well? This may be more difficult in the laboratory settings, but we should always have in mind that especially those who are working with the macroorganisms to check their microbial communities. And interestingly, extreme environments are always identified as a untapped source of new, especially new enzymes, and that could be used in the industrial settings. So I assume that extreme explorations will not get out of style anytime soon, also because of biotechnological reasons. And in applied science, where we stand, interestingly, early on in 2001, what I noticed in the first document, mostly culturing techniques were explained or highlighted, that we should engage more time and resources to improve the culturing of currently uncultured taxa. While later on in 2010, already there was talk about cell lines, there was talk about high throughput tools for production, there was talk about cultivation and harvesting, separation, purification, dereplication, and this was repeated also in 2017, because applied research is not only culturing, this is only step one. And the improvement of culturing techniques and the improvement of cultivation, extraction, characterization, this is something that is still ongoing. And a lot of surveys or campaigns that try to identify at least lists of organisms with biotechnological potential, and a lot of studies are now being done. There are existing lists of interesting organisms for biotechnological valorization. So this is still ongoing, and this will be ongoing for many years to come. And I can see very clearly why it is always being reiterated as a point of action, and we need to highlight that there is a need to maintain this field of research as well. In the industrial scale-up part of the pipeline, there was very little mention of it back in early in 2001. Mostly about sustainability of supply, because one thing is to have a proof of concept in the laboratory settings, but when you want to get to the market, you need to guarantee that your product that will be marketed will have a stable supply. But what appeared later on in 2010, not only stable supply, sustainable supply, but also not to damage the environment. So environmental sustainability also became a very important point of concern, actually. And in 2010, interestingly, there was also talk about model organisms that could be used on one hand to advance the knowledge on ecology. On the other hand, maybe in genetic engineering settings, to use them as producer organisms rather than maybe some extreme organism. But this again goes back to the omics technologies and the need to collaborate with molecular biology laboratories. What is most urgent, in my personal opinion, is the thing that is written on the first row. We are in urgent need of pilot and demonstration sites. This was identified already 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, because there is one thing to organize a joint research or a joint R&D project with laboratories. They will be able to have laboratory proof of concept. So I would say TRL 5 to 6. But if we want to replicate it on a larger scale, we urgently need pilot and demonstration sites that are typically not in receiving industry setting. They should be, I don't know, we spoke with my colleagues from the Mediterranean that, for example, if we would have in some official pilot company in the Mediterranean, this would be very good in the marine biotechnology because we would have closer transport of materials, similar climate, there would not be a big time lag with transportation, and we would have the opportunity to have one-stop shop for any type of pre-commercialization activities. And currently, to the best of my knowledge, there are very few pilot sites, and I am not sure if anyone is specialized for marine. So we would be, this is urgently needed, I believe. And finally, what typically we often forget about, even when we have a good idea, is the last step, the commercial application. The commercial application, and for example, when we try to get funding and we define the consortium of collaboration, unfortunately, I have seen many times that the knowledge or the expertise of business strategists, market researchers is not present. And this is then goes to the disadvantage when the project is already being implemented. Because economists and business strategists, we cannot take their expertise. They are the ones who should be guiding the development of new products and processes, and also going hand in hand with us, saying that, look, you're not thinking about economic viability. You're not thinking about the prototyping. You're not thinking about addressing the consumers. You're not even asking them if there is need for a specific product. And also in 2010, what was identified is that we need to raise the awareness in industry sector that there is potential to get new products from the marine environments. They wrote very nicely that sometimes the industrial sector is not even aware of the opportunity, and they always go to the terrestrial or synthetic sources. And as I said, Europe as a global competitive leader was a vision in 2010. Unfortunately, we are not there yet, but who knows, maybe soon. The overarching challenges are the education, cooperation, knowledge providers, and data providers, and infrastructure sharing. So in 2001, it was identified that there should be a pan-European either a network, either a new research center, either an institute that would be solely devoted to marine biotechnology. This was repeated as an initiative both times in 2010 and 2017. Now, there are currently some of the project initiatives. I mentioned to you Ocean for Biotech, there and Assemble and Assemble Plus, or EMBRC, but unfortunately they are not open to all. Either they're close to people or organizations that pay a big fee to be a part, or they are restricted to duration of the project. So I don't know how and when this will be a reality, but it would be very good to have a central institution that would be not that would be open to all, and would be knowledge or resource infrastructure provider. I don't know where we are today with these discussions. Plus, there is one thing that traditional, and what I said also already in the basic research, traditional marine biology and marine biotechnology should walk hand in hand, should help each other. It is difficult sometimes to collaborate with a typical traditional ecologist and marine biotechnologists, because the way they view science is totally different. But it can be done. And inherently, marine biotechnology is international, interdisciplinary. It is also international and it's intersectorial. What I feel that there is lack of today is the monitor, the strict monitor of all the projects, initiatives, market entries that resulted, that are stemming from marine biotechnology, and also strictly monitor what happened with projects that have been financed with European money 5 years and 10 years after the project is finished. I don't see that this is clearly displayed, and the information is very difficult to get sometimes, because even if it goes to market, you are not aware that this new product resulted from a research that started as a European collaboration. So if we would have a monitoring mechanism, maybe even by the funding resources or through European center, this would be very useful also for newcomers and other experts to get to know what is already there. The same goes with biorepositories. In Ocean for Biotech, we are currently developing a biorepository with organisms that individual experts are selecting and testing for biotechnological potential applications. And there was a project, EU Open Screen, that has the and is now like a biorepository for bioassays and results that have been that are available for external partners to check. And education has always been addressed as the top priority. There are no specific marine biotechnology postgraduate studies. If there are, they're very restrictive, very limited, or only as part of projects. Project lasts 3 years. They will do a very nice curriculum, and then after the financing is gone, all good ideas and all knowledge is not shared anymore because of lack of resources. So this was identified more often than not, that there should be an international forum for knowledge provision and trainings, summer schools, whatever. IP and legal obstacles have been addressed since early on, and has always been, since the early beginnings, it was very clear that intellectual property is an inherent part of marine biotechnology development. And I believe personally that the technology transfer needs some improvement and collaboration with experts, and also the collaboration with the policymaking sector needs, I would say, substantial improvement, because sometimes it's not, the key players are not used in these communications. And to establish the connection and collaboration with policymakers takes a long time, and it needs to be maintained. And it's completely different than collaborating with the researchers or industry. So again, it takes resilience and skills, which are self-trained. Overall, to finish, I know I'm long. Overall, what I believe these are the most important things. We need funding advocacy. We need to be very well prepared. What we want, who are the target players, what is the knowledge our group doesn't have. For example, typically the business strategy. And you need to get those experts, not someone that says, I can do this in addition to my lab work. No, you need specific expertise. We need urgent long-term monitoring of funded projects, and a one-stop shop where we could see where the money went and what has been done 5 or 10 years after it finished. For sure, there are information, but they're scattered all over. And it's very hard to get to reliable or even to know where to look. Dissemination and communication between different members of the quadruple helix needs to be even more reinforced. And the same goes with education on the intellectual property, because this is the problem with collaboration between research and the industry, because the publication culture is different. How you get funding for research and development is different. How you protect your intellectual rights is completely different. And these need to be addressed from the get-go of any activity. And sometimes they are not. And then there is a problem, because there is also a critical lack of experts in the field. Also, we have to acknowledge that there are basic differences between in the approach of science and biotechnology. The ecologists, classical taxonomists, will approach science totally differently than biotechnologists or the industrial sector. And what is very important, and I noticed throughout the years, you need so-called hustlers in marine biotechnology. These are middle people. These are people who know how to talk to ecologists or the biotechnologists or the pure lab people, the industrial sector, who know how to mingle in these policymaking events. You need them, because otherwise the concentrated effort of doing new products and process is delayed or even lost. And finally, there is huge competition, and there is a good potential in regional projects as well. I told you, for example, for the Mediterranean. But what happens when they finish? Who monitors it? When the money is gone, what happens with all the good ideas and the prototypes? And this is what saddens me, that we are not pushed or stimulated to finalize everything we start, or if we don't finalize it, to really critically explain why not and what was the plan B. This is, I think, what is lacking. this self criticism a little bit after the music is gone. For example, what we did in Ocean for Biotech is we had a survey where we asked colleagues, it was publicly announced, what is your expertise in the field of marine biotechnology? Where are you located? Would you allow to give your contacts and your position on the map? So one of the approaches to at least try to get the stakeholders is to have such map where you can click based on what you want to. It's on our Ocean for Biotech website, for example, but you can click and see, I need experts in Iceland, or for example, I need experts in extreme environments, and then the map will show you where they are. For sure, there are many more experts in Europe than they're addressed here. And I hope we can in future find ways to have one-stop shop for stakeholders in identification, one-stop shop for monitoring of projects, one-stop shop for enabling exchange of cultures, exchange of knowledge, and exchange of or use of sharing of infrastructures. So these are my critical points that I feel that they still need a lot of discussion before the next position paper or policy brief is launched by European Marine Board. So now I would give the floor back to Brit.
Thanks so much, Anna. That was very, very interesting to hear your perspectives and to see the comparison and evolution of the progress and the objectives throughout the years. So we'll now go on to the Q&A session. We have about 10 minutes for questions. So we've just got one question in from Aine. I hope that's how you pronounce it, O'Donnell. She says, I totally agree, but I think this is where you need investors and entrepreneurs to interject. I guess once the prototype has been verified, you can then pitch this to investors or entrepreneurs who will be motivated by money to adopt this commercially. So more of a comment, but do you have any thoughts on that, Anna?
Yes, I agree with Aine totally. And I would say 3 years ago, I was on an event. I was not presenting. I was there as a person, a spectator. It was like lower TRL ideas being pitched to potential investors. It was hardcore scrutinized. And if you are not fully 100% ready to explain your ideas in 3 minutes from all different angles, you are out of the game. And this really opened my eyes on how you should promote your, it's totally different from when we write articles or when we write project proposals. And this is the knowledge that we should be getting in order to get private funding. And this is not only in big pitch events, but also a lot of one-on-one meetings in the afternoon, not in the office, somewhere outside. And we have to, this is the name of the game. If we really are serious to putting a product on the market, this is, I totally agree. And somebody needs to coach us.
Yeah, that's a whole other skill set, isn't it? That's that scientists need to learn. Yeah, for sure. So that also links to another question we have from Mariana Almeida from University of Minho in Portugal. She says, which strategy should be adapted for public education and engagement? And I guess that also links to once the product goes to commercialization, the public acceptance of those products, and are there any specific challenges there? And also, I know you've worked a lot in communication for various projects, so maybe you have some examples of the types of messaging around marine biotechnology that can be more successful.
Yes, actually, this is a very easy question to answer, and a very good one, because fortunately for us, the marine environment has always sparked interest in the general public.
Yeah.
from early ages, from children all the way to senior citizens. So how to address them and spark their interest is much easier than, for example, if you work with potato. I and so this already opens the door. And by organizing hands-on events, by having tasting sessions, if it's a food development or feed development, it's using visual aids such as animation videos, comic books, um, uh, like competitions for best drawings. It's very easy to engage all levels of public, and they would be very grateful.
Yeah, thanks. And I also have a similar question about increasing the buy-in from industry, because you mentioned that industry is often more aware of either terrestrial compounds from natural sources or synthetic sources. So, and I think if you go the synthetic route, then the pipeline is a lot shorter as well than the natural product. So how do you get them interested in marine biotechnology and to invest in such projects that have a long timeline with a lot of unpredictability?
Indeed, synthetic is maybe shorter, the development, but much more expensive.
Yeah.
Typically, and complex. The steps of synthesis are, well, I'm not a chemist, but I can only assume the complexity that it entails. So from what I know is this is reserved typically for the high risk, high gain sectors such as pharmacology, for example. But how to get the interest of industry is nowadays also easier than it used to be because we are competing with the terrestrial environment for soil resources, for food, for feed. And there, on the other hand, we have 70% of the area that is underexplored and underutilized. So this is one. Second, if the organisms have adapted and survived and thrived in these environments that are sometimes even extreme, can you imagine what wealth of enzymes, polysaccharides, pigments they have that we could use in our everyday life and are not restricted to any ethical or legal restrictions, such as if we use food or animals from terrestrial resources. And third, it's sometimes, especially from the coastal countries, what I noticed that industry will like to hear, and also the general public, sometimes you need to go to fish 2 meters from the coast, and you will find the answer to your societal challenge, to your urgent problem. It was always there, but nobody bothered to look. So I think it's and the first movers in the industrial sector will, I think it will give them a competitive advantage when they commercialize their new products.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, and one final question before we close. So also from Mariana Almeida, and she says, looking to the next years, would the targets marine animal groups be the ones that you mentioned in the talk? You had a short list there, or are there other marine phyla or taxa that may arise that are important? And it also links to something I was thinking about that you mentioned, the link between the biodiversity studies and the biotechnology studies. So are there sort of more strategic ways to look for the biodiversity that will be most promising?
Yes, I hope you can hear me well. Okay, we have a big storm now, so.
Oh dear. Yeah, we can still hear you.
So the animal groups are also very interesting because they were originally those who were mostly explored and used. in biotechnology because they were easier to see and harvest. They are somehow connected with environmental sustainability issues on one hand, and then many questions you might get from the general public. So what now? You want to take all the fish from the sea, for example. You have to be ready to answer this kind of questions. But sometimes, as I said, maybe it's not even the macroorganism, the animal. Maybe it is the symbionts that are responsible for a certain activity. And I'm pretty sure that in future we will find ways to use animals also, but sustainably, without disrupting the fragile ecological balances in the marine environment. There is some initiatives, as I mentioned, cell cultures or aquaculturing of these organisms, or reuse their waste, valorize their waste, for example, from fishing industries or from household environments for new products and processes. So animals for sure are still there and used, but with some ethical considerations to take into account.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're gonna have to end there the question and answer session because we're already at 2 o'clock. But I would like to thank you again, Anna, for the really interesting talk. It's nice to revisit this topic of marine biotechnology. So I think that we have one slide left to show. Yeah, so this is just to announce our next webinar, which will be held on Thursday, the 15th of September. And it's also on a related topic, also related to marine biotechnology. So the speaker will be Dr. Jane Collins. She's a team leader for access and benefit sharing at the UK Government Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. So she will be talking about unlocking marine genetic resources and streamlining the legal, policy and business aspects of the marine biodiscovery pipeline. So if you found today interesting, then you can go ahead and register for our next webinar to hear more about marine biotech and the biodiscovery pipeline. So I'd just like to thank everyone again for joining us today.